Good morning and welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another analysis and breakdown of the Koran of the Muslims. Yes, we're back once again to break these things down verse by verse into factual logical statements in English so that we can understand who or what is Allah, what does he mean by the contents of his books there, and more importantly for us as non-believers, how does this affect us in our lives today? So before I start, I'm going to kindly ask you now, if you have any doubts or questions as to my factual accuracy, please first buy and read one of these, a Quran, and one of these, an Arabic-only Quran, because these two books are not the same in content. They are markedly different, for reasons we shall get into. And after you have done so, you'll recognise every single thing I am going to tell you now, or have previously told you, is 100% true and accurate of what Muslims believe today, and how this is going to affect you now in your life as a citizen of a Western democracy. So with that in mind, let's carry on where we left off. We've been going through Al-Nisa, the book of women, Allah's guidance on fair treatment of women, including how you pick them up off the street and enslave them, when and where you can beat them, and what happens to them after you have beaten and raped them, and they have to accept the sin and indecency of this act, whereas you as a Muslim man accept none of it. What I thought would be interesting to do, since I received many comments which are now deleted, mostly it must be said from Muslims, who claimed that my reading was false and these things never happened. This is just the fantasies of a Nazi, an Islamophobe racist. And they said, we will not believe you unless you can find a woman to testify in person. So that is exactly what I have done. First of all, I feel a responsibility to warn you. This testimony is not for the faint of heart. This is some harrowing, disgusting stuff straight from the horse's mouth of a victim of familial gang rape in an Islamic family. This is a picture of 13-year-old Nina Ayuk, an Islamic family's daughter, an unwanted daughter who was trafficked in virtually as a baby and set upon by a gang of her own family plus strangers and gang raped in the most horrific fashion. This is her testimony.
I went in with the big tray that we had. It was a big white tray, probably bigger than me. And he grabbed my wrist and the tray fell down. And he was the first person to throw me onto the table and rape me.
Just for context, she was trafficked in as a baby to this country, used as a maidservant by her family. So she was trained in how to service food, cook and clean up after her brothers, uncles and whoever else was there. And when she reached the age of 13, which they were waiting for, then this happened to her with her mother there.
I didn't know what was happening. I was too young. I closed my eyes. But I lived without the ability to see, so I knew each person's sound of who it was, each person's touch almost. And it was a very horrific attack by 7 or 8 men on me.
cast your mind back to yesterday and the previous day's videos where we read through An-Nisa or Al-Nisa, the Islamic law concerning how you treat women, how you are fairly supposed to treat your women in the guidance of Allah. Then relate that directly to this.
And I was thrown from person to person. I was beaten, I was bitten. And eventually I must have passed out.
Her mother, who is also quite young, and her as a baby were trafficked into this country by their Islamic family, specifically for the purposes of being sexual slaves to an Islamic gang. And she was at the age of 13 set upon by 7 or 8 men, including some of her brothers and uncles, and raped in the most horrific fashion, as we will find out. Now you might think to yourself, this is absolutely horrific, and you'd be right. But not everyone in the world will hold that view. Not every country in the world has that morality to grow up with and to accept. Some cultures, such as the Islamic cultures, with the Koran as their guide, with Allah giving them guidance from God, think that this is absolutely normal behaviour.
And when I came to, it was because my mother opened and closed the door and woke me up. And I remember not having my bottom part of my clothes on, and I was literally lying in a bath of my own blood.
She wakes up in a bathtub of her own blood, covered in bite marks, bruises and open wounds, and the thing that alerts her to her senses and wakes her up is her mother opening the door and waking her up and then shutting the door and leaving her in a bath full of blood. Now, what kind of a monster does it take to brainwash a mother so heavily that they will react to their own child being attacked in that way? What kind of a person would traffic a young girl into this country for the specific purpose of this?
And the first thing I thought about was, there's food everywhere, on the walls, on the floor, and I'm going to be in so much trouble.
And the first thing that she thinks of is, I'm going to be in so much trouble and I should go and clean up the mess that was left. This is exactly what we are now dealing with in Britain when we talk of grooming gangs, which is a nice, pretty way of saying Islamic rape and genocide gangs, and that's what this is. This is a jihad. This is a rape, torture, punishment levied upon non-Muslims for not upholding Sharia, for not upholding the guidance of Allah. And her first thought was for her attackers.
I didn't actually give myself any consideration because I believed I wasn't worth anything, because that's what they had taught me from birth to believe.
This is the legacy of diversity policy in this country. Women being brought up to believe that they are worthless. So what have you got to say now, Muslims? Is this CGI? Is this a Zionist puppet? Is this person also being paid shekels by the evil Jews, the same as you accuse me of? Or is this exactly what you asked me to produce? First-hand accounts and evidence, testimony by a victim of a Islamic rape gang who had her childhood completely destroyed by the evils which Allah commands of his Muslims and which Muslims believe is righteous. Now you just heard from her there. She was taught from a young age that she was not worth anything and that she actually believed that this was just everyday life. This was normal. How long are we going to wait before we start putting up a resistance to this? Or are we happy for this to become normalised here in our so-called civilised democracy? There's much more to see. Let's carry on with her testimony.
I was so naive, I didn't understand what happened. You know, we don't have conversations about periods or sex or relationships in my culture or cultures like it. It's a taboo to even think about it. So I just knew it was wrong, but I didn't School back then didn't teach us these things.
Sadly for Nina, a month following this, shortly beyond her 14th birthday, she discovered that she was probably pregnant by this rape, though she didn't know particularly who the father was from the 8 men. And this meant she was now in even more trouble and would be heavily punished by her family.
And all I knew is that it was wrong, and I didn't feel like me anymore. She allowed me to have a shower, and I was never allowed to shower. My brothers were. They used to make me have bucket baths, which meant you have a bucket and you fill it up, and then you use a jug to wash yourself.
She didn't understand, but she just knew that it was wrong. She's not talking about what happened to her. She's talking about what's happening in her. Now that she's become aware that there is a life growing inside her from this rape attack, she thinks she has wrong inside her body. She completely absorbed the guilt from the whole thing. She has not once looked at her attackers, her mother, or the society at large. This is 100% on her head as a 14-year-old girl. She says for the first time ever her mother allowed her to have a shower, rather than washing out of a bucket with a jug and some cold water. This is the hallmark of slavery. Now, we like to believe in our fairy lights living that slavery does not exist anymore, and for a time we may have been right. Slavery was extremely rare in this country. What a shame that since the instigation of mass immigration and the pouring of millions of imported Islamic faith men and women into this country, now we have a new problem of slavery, sexual slavery. And until we find our courage and our voice, this is only set to get worse. And we cannot rely on the government, the police, the job centre, the Careers Citizens Advice Bureau, or the BBC. None of these people who have known about this for at least a decade are willing to speak out. This has to be us that solves this problem. And if we don't, it will be a problem for us and our children in future. There's even more to this disgusting tale, and although it weighs heavy on my heart to have to share this with you, you need to know this.
The shower really stung, so where I'd been bitten, where I'd had open wounds, it really stung, and I kind of wished I had had the bucket bath. But after that, I had just asked her if I could go to sleep because I was in so much agony. I was in a lot of internal pain naturally, but the mental pain was almost that I felt broken. I just felt like that was it. That was the end of me.
You know, I've been through a lot in my life. I consider that I'm a bit of a survivor. I can't imagine the horror of that. I can't even understand what that must have felt like for that poor 14-year-old girl, through no fault of her own, with her family and her mother watching on, being attacked by her brothers and uncles and some random strangers, beaten, bitten, raped, then dropped in a bath, unconscious, and awoken to nothing but guilt.
She was just angry and almost made me feel that it was my fault, that I had asked for it, that it was me that had instigated the whole attack.
And this is always what we see with Islamic cultures. Because of the writings of Al-Nisa that we went through yesterday and the day before, the man is not only exonerated from any blame, it is considered that he is righteous, that his actions are in some way facilitating Allah's holy judgment, his righteous judgment. And the woman is the object of sin, filth and indecency. So it's absolutely no surprise to me to see this reaction on this poor young girl. And so poor young Nina, 13 and now a 14-year-old young girl, suddenly finds herself completely despised by her own family, pregnant to a random man carrying the sin, filth and indecency that Allah has given her, and she is now a problem for her mother and her sisters. And they take to her with violence to try to solve this problem themselves, to keep it out the way of the men in the family.
This was a different kind of beating. It was almost as though they were determined to kill me. And all my life I'd been threatened that we will bury you under these floorboards, and I really believed they would. And within no time, they'd broken my jaw. They had broken my arm, and I was in a lot of pain.
So now you know. It is not propaganda, it is not Islamophobia, it is not CGI, it is not propaganda. This is happening, ladies, gents and Pikachus, now in this country, and has been happening for a good amount of years. Several decades, in fact. And as we have seen, we cannot rely on the police, the government, the institutions, the media, to care about these women. They deserve better from us. We are the people of this country. This is our country. So while people may call you a racist or an Islamophobe for telling the truth that this evil book is the source of these disgusting perversions, we have a responsibility to ourselves, our women, and the future children of this country to say no to this, to put a stop to this, and to make sure every single pair of eyes and ears in this whole country knows this is happening as part of a concerted, organised plan called the Holy Islamic Jihad. And the longer we let it go on, the worse it's going to get. So, this is what I propose. Make every single person in your life well aware of this, whether they protest, whether they call you names, whether they try to ignore it. Keep working on them. Keep showing them the evidence. Keep making the case in your conversations. Bring it up wherever you can and make sure they know. Nobody else is coming to help these poor children. No one. Certainly not their own families, not the police, no one. This is our responsibility. This is our fight. We are the people of this country. Britain and British people can solve this problem if we band together and we show courage and strength and patience and we do the right thing. Now, I believe in you. I have great faith in my audience and the people of this country to do the right thing. So next time someone says to you, religion of peace, it's just as equal as all the other religions, you can show them this video and you can say no. This is equal to Satan. This religion of peace is a cult of rape and death and must be banished from our shores for the good and the safety of everyone. Because they will not be reformed, neither will they honestly inquire of themselves what they should be. They will deny it and they will carry on until we put a stop to it ourselves, and that is what we must do. So that's the end of this video. I know you didn't enjoy that. I am extremely sorry to have shown you that, but we need to get a grip of this now. And that means we need education of what they are doing compared to what they are saying, and we need to put our heads together and formulate a strategy to rid our country of these disgusting perversions and evils. And in doing so, we can bring this country back to its core values of equality, rights for women, peace, education, and prosperity for all, including 13 to 14-year-old girls who are not Muslim. That's the end of this video. So, God bless you all. See you in the next one. And I really hope you listened. And just remember, don't let these guys fill you with fear, with guilt. The fear and the guilt should be theirs. Let this fill you with motivation to smash this evil cult. So meet me back here tomorrow for more Without Lies, Islam Dies. In the meantime, God bless you all, have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one.